5.5 million Americans experience symptoms of dementia. And as lawmakers grapple with budget issues in Washington, the cost of caring for our aging population is only going to rise, especially if 75% of those dementia patients wind up in a nursing home. But what if the symptoms of dementia can be reversed? Well, it'll cost a lot of money developing the drugs to do that, right? What if it can be done without drugs? Can SAIDO learning stop the advancement of dementia or improve one's symptoms without the use of medication? SAIDO learning, developed little more than a decade ago in Japan, is being offered in the United States for the first time and only at Eliza Jennings Senior Care Network, which offers several services at a variety of facilities operated by Eliza Jennings. Deborah Hiller is president and CEO of the Eliza Jennings Senior Care Network and joins us tonight on the 11th hour. Deborah, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And how is it that SAIDO learning came to Eliza Jennings first on the shores of the United States?
The reason we have it is it's actually a story of coincidence and happenstance.
Well, good. I want to hear it.
We were lucky enough to be invited to be part of a presentation by a Japanese researcher who worked for a neuroscientist in Japan named Ryuta Kawashima. And this program was attended by 5 nursing home organizations here in Cleveland. And this researcher showed us videos and studies that related to what's called now SAIDO learning. And we saw that this program could actually reverse the symptoms of dementia.
Reverse?
Reverse.
And how does that happen?
Well, the way that it happens is through conducting SAIDO learning therapy, which is done 5 times a week. It's a 30-minute session. It's very, very specific and detailed. The employees at Eliza Jennings, who are called supporters, are trained to do this therapy in a very specific way, and it involves having the person with dementia, who is called a learner, having that person go through a series of very specifically planned reading, writing, and arithmetic exercises.
More than just a crossword puzzle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Kumon organization, which is our partner and is the owner of this intellectual property in Japan, is an extremely well-known organization. It's a multinational organization, and their expertise for the past 60 years has been to develop programming for academic enrichment for kids.
Oh.
And so they have a lot of expertise in developing these worksheets. And the worksheets, as I say, involve reading and writing and arithmetic. But it's not just any reading and writing and arithmetic problems. They are designed to be at what the Japanese have taught us to call the just right level.
Oh, I see. Not too hot, not too cold.
Well, in a manner of speaking, the just right level is that level where a person with dementia can be successful in performing the exercise 100% of the time, which, when you think about it, is not an easy thing to develop the materials to do that, because that's part of the problem of interacting with people with dementia. You don't know where they are intellectually.
At any given time.
At any given time.
Because does it not change from hour to hour, day to day?
Well, certainly people with dementia seem to have good days and bad days. But in terms of doing these exercises, Kumon has had the expertise to create the worksheets so that they can effectively do these exercises 5 days a week. And they're not doing the exercises to learn the materials, because for one thing, they've already known that level of materials. But more importantly, what the purpose of the materials is is to actually stimulate the prefrontal cortex in a very specific way, to give what they call the right cognitive load. And that is to stimulate the prefrontal cortex sufficiently that it actually creates something called the transfer effect. And through the transfer, this is remarkable, through the transfer effect, you stimulate the prefrontal cortex, and what it does is it improves your abilities to do other things. So that in the case of a person with cognitive impairment, it could mean that they are doing reading and writing and arithmetic to stimulate their prefrontal cortex. And what that does is enable them to remember somebody's name or remember how to get back to their room.
Have you seen this happen?
Oh, I see this happen literally every single day.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Well, it is a pretty miraculous process.
I bet. And how long does it take for this transfer effect to happen?
Well, the transfer effect can happen literally after every session.
Right away?
I mean, that's really sort of the purpose of the transfer effect. When we began we were in a research trial, and when we began the research trial, we actually began seeing the beginnings of changes in the learners' abilities literally within the first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it could have been very small changes at the very beginning, but over time, some of them have been remarkably profound changes.
How many people are in the program?
Well, right now at Eliza Jennings, we've had as many, I think up to about 100 learners throughout our network. These are people who have been living with us in one of our residential communities. We're about to open a new kind of program as an alternative to adult day programs, where people who are still living in the community who have cognitive impairment can come to what we call the SAIDO Learning Center and get the therapy, the SAIDO Learning Therapy, and also programming all day that supports that therapy, which is a vital part of SAIDO learning. It is not just the therapy and these exercises that are done as we say, at the tables. Mm-hmm. It also involves the interactions that the people who are living with us have with our staff, who are specifically trained to interact with them in a particular way. That is, to interact with them to support the changes that have been seen from the therapy, as well as to support their being as autonomous and independent as possible, which increases. Their level of independence increases.
That's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
You've mentioned cognitive learning impairment. Is that the same as dementia?
Well, when we talk about dementia, we're talking, people sometimes say Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Alzheimer's is simply one form of dementia. There are many forms of dementia. The wonderful thing about SAIDO learning is that it works on all kinds of dementia with the exception of dementia that's been induced by alcoholism.
Huh. I wonder why.
Well, I don't really know the answer to that myself because I haven't that kind of expertise. I've been told that alcohol-induced dementia apparently affects a different part of the brain. So that perhaps it's not just that it's your prefrontal cortex that's been impaired.
Why is it that this SAIDO learning technique is not being used elsewhere?
Well, in part because it actually was developed in Japan, and even when our Japanese colleagues from Kumon came to the United States to do this research trial, that's how we happened to meet them. They were looking for a research trial partner. Mm-hmm. When they came to the United States to do the research trial, they had no intention really of making it available in the United States.
Oh.
They really were trying to build the credibility of the therapy through a research trial in the United States because, I guess not surprisingly, the world still does look to the United States to be the stamp of approval for a lot of research. So what they were trying to do is improve the acceptance of SAIDO learning in Japan, which it really didn't need to have a whole lot of that, but they wanted to have the research, additional research to back up their initial research.
The endorsement of the big brother.
Yeah. I don't know that they would appreciate that characterization, but I would certainly think that would be one way to call it.
Deborah Hiller is with us from Eliza Jennings. We're talking about SAIDO learning. Can anyone then sign up for the SAIDO Learning Center?
Well, when it opens in November, yes, they could. Mm-hmm. Yes, they could. It's going to be located on our Eliza Jennings campus.
In Lakewood?
Well, we're actually on Western Cleveland, but it's on the border of Lakewood.
Okay.
And we have, at this point, capability of taking 23 people, but over time we will be able to take probably as many as 50, at least in that site. And
will they be referred by doctors?
Don't have to be.
No?
Nope. They can just call Eliza Jennings and let somebody know that they're interested in signing up and get the information, and we'll follow through with that.
Would they not need an official diagnosis of dementia?
Interestingly enough, the answer to that is no.
Okay.
As the researchers even have been trying to get more data on what's causing Alzheimer's, there has been a sort of a subtle shift to realize how very difficult it is to get diagnoses, specific diagnoses of dementia. I think it's safe to say that no one would want to claim to have dementia when they don't. Mm-hmm. So I think there's sort of a built-in barrier to people saying, committing fraud about wanting to be claimed to be demented. So
often it's the opposite.
Yes.
Sadly.
Yes, it is very much the opposite. There's a lot of stigma still attached to something that is going to become a bigger and bigger problem.
Right. Because of the aging population?
Yes.
Exclusively? I mean, is there...
Well, you know what? We're seeing a lot more early onset dementia, and I'm not sure if that's because people are more attuned to what dementia is. And we actually have, although we don't have nearly enough geriatricians in the United States, we do have more geriatricians who are capable of letting people know that what they are experiencing is dementia. There are a lot more geriatric assessment programs available.
What are the main symptoms of dementia?
Memory impairment. Mm-hmm. But it can be actually much more than that. That's why it's such a tragic illness. It can affect your ability to have expression on your face. We call it having no light in your eyes. It is inability to speak. I mean, as the disease progresses, you can't walk anymore. You can't talk. You can't even initiate a conversation or even form an intention to do an action. I mean, it's just it's what makes us human to have our prefrontal cortex working effectively. And to have it impaired like that means that you lose sort of the fundamental nature of being human.
Is there a point at which SAIDO learning will not help someone with dementia when they progress to a certain point?
We haven't found it, if that's the case. I think, yes, there is a sort of a tendency to believe that this must only work for people who are slightly impaired. We have not been doing SAIDO therapy all that long here. We've been only doing it, the trial started in November of 2011. However, in Japan, they've now been doing it for a long time, and we saw video presentations of a woman, Mrs. Yoshida, in Japan, who was as impaired with dementia as anybody I've seen in my 30 years in aging services.
No light?
Oh, no light. Could only move her hand. Totally bedbound for 3 years. Barely able to express anything verbally. Before they started doing the therapy for her at her bedside, because she wasn't able to sit up even, Before she died, she was capable of sitting in a wheelchair. She was capable of speaking. She was capable of writing.
That is remarkable.
Oh, it is remarkable. It is truly remarkable.
Is it expensive?
No, actually, we're talking about making it available to people for about $10 a day. And when you compare that with the cost of pharmaceuticals, it's just remarkably inexpensive.
We can't keep this to ourselves, Deborah.
Well, we're trying to not keep it to ourselves.
We have to spread this goodness.
Well, we're trying, and fortunately, our Japanese partners have authorized us recently to spread SAIDO learning throughout the United States. This morning I concluded our negotiations with our very first partner, who's coming to Cleveland on Tuesday to begin their official training. We have created the Eliza Jennings SAIDO Learning Institute, and that is the training center for the United States for SAIDO learning. And we have our first partners coming from Cincinnati. We are in discussions with 7 or 8 other very large nonprofit organizations who are very well known in the aging service business. And so we are well on our way to spreading it.
And you do offer services other than SAIDO learning, of course.
Well, yes. I mean, Eliza Jennings has been in the business of helping older adults to improve the quality of their lives for 125 years. Oh. And we began with a home for the incurables of all things in 1888, and have since then had created, in addition to the original Eliza Jennings home, we have the Renaissance Retirement Community out in Olmsted Township.
I know it well.
Oh, do you? Really good. And we also have our assisted living community in Westlake. That's the Eliza Jennings community in Westlake at Devon Oaks. Mm-hmm. As well as we've had a pretty standard adult day program at Acacia Place. We are slowly phasing out that standard program to replace it, as I said earlier, with the SAIDO Learning Center.
I see. And that's where it will be physically located?
Yes.
At Acacia Place?
Where Acacia Place is. It's on the Eliza Jennings campus, as I said, in West Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. And you can get information on all the services Eliza Jennings has to offer on their website, which was a very detailed website, but I didn't write down the address.
Oh, the web address? It's elizajennings.org. Very easy.
Makes perfect sense.
Very easy.
Right. So if you have a loved one, or you yourself perhaps,
I do,
are offering, you may benefit by the SAIDO Learning Center when it opens in November on the campus of Eliza Jennings Senior Care Network. Its president and CEO, Deborah Hiller, has been our guest tonight. Deborah, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Jim, it was really nice to be here. Thank you for having us.